On August 20, 636 AD, at the Battle of Yarmouk, the Byzantine army found itself completely engulfed in the chaos. A blinding sandstorm had swept through the river gorge, trapping the imperial forces in near-zero visibility. Then, the Byzantine defensive lines collapsed from within. 12,000 Christian Arab allies, men who were paid to fight for the empire, turned their weapons on the Byzantine regulars mid-battle. The loyalist forces were immediately overwhelmed. This sudden defection broke the Byzantine formation entirely, ensuring an absolute rout by the opposing Muslim Arab army. A microscopic debate over religious doctrine had effectively dismantled the empire's border defenses long before the first arrow was fired. Empires rarely fall squarely because an external enemy knocks down their gates. They are more often hollowed out first by self-inflicted internal blunders. In the years leading up to Yarmouk, Emperor Heraclius had secured a massive military victory, successfully defending his empire against the Persians. But those victories came at an enormous cost. Years of relentless, continuous campaigning had drained Heraclius both physically and mentally, sapping his energy and clouding his judgment. His Persian Sassanid adversaries were in exactly the same state. Both of these ancient rivals were exhausted, like prize-fighters barely able to stand for the final round of a long bout. This mutual weakness coincided with the rapid expansion of a unified, motivated Muslim Arab force sweeping out of the desert. In this fragile state, Byzantine survival rested on a clear strategic reality. Heraclius needed the loyalty of every border ally and mercenary he possessed. On the Arabian border, the Byzantines relied heavily on tribes like the Banu Ghassan. They were desert-dwelling monophysite Christians, serving as a highly effective mercenary shield for the empire. For generations, military commanders understood the practical value of these allies. They prioritized keeping the tribesmen well-paid and well-treated to maintain a strong bulwark against the Persians. Heraclius, however, occupied two distinct roles. He was the military head of state, and he was the designated physical arm of the Orthodox Christian Church. He refused to allow military necessity to override his duty to enforce religious doctrine. He looked at the Banu Ghassan and saw subjects adhering to an incorrect theology. A soldier's competence and willingness to fight for the empire were no longer sufficient. Under Heraclius, their value was tied to their strict conformity to his specific religious doctrine. To bridge the gap, Heraclius attempted to force a new theological compromise onto the Banu Ghassan, a doctrine called monoenergism. The intervention was rejected. Consequently, the Orthodox Church began an active period of persecution against the exact men the military needed to secure the border. This internal fracturing occurred at the worst possible moment. In 634 AD, Muslim Arab forces pushed into Palestine and captured Gaza, creating an imminent threat to the region. Heraclius scrambled to respond. After his first two armies suffered defeats, he sent General Vahan with a massive force relying heavily on 12,000 alienated Christian Arabs. The empire's geographic survival now rested entirely on the shoulders of the very men it was actively oppressing. By August 636, General Vahan had concentrated the weight of the Byzantine army at the Yarmouk River Gorge. As the battle engaged, a sandstorm rolled into the valley. The dust stripped away all visibility, crippling Byzantine communication and leaving commanders blind to the movement of their own units. Hidden within the chaos of the storm, the ideological friction broke into open mutiny. The persecuted Banu Ghassan abandoned the Byzantine cause and joined the Muslim forces mid-battle. The Byzantine lines shattered. Stripped of 12,000 men and attacked from within their own formation, the loyalist soldiers were quickly outnumbered and crushed. This total collapse was the direct result of an imperial policy that prioritized theological conformity over military survival. With the army destroyed at Yarmouk, the geopolitical landscape of the Middle East shifted. The entirety of Syria and Palestine slipped permanently out of Byzantine control. Shortly afterward, Jerusalem fell. For Heraclius, losing the birthplace and spiritual center of his religion was a profound personal failure. A military alliance built over generations was erased by the emperor's insistence on absolute ideological purity. How often does the hubris of internal political purity blind an empire to the most basic requirements of its own survival?